Did you know that Riot actually killed off a champion in League of Legends? I don't mean that they nerfed a champion to death, or even that they reworked a champion into something unrecognizable. Sorry, Aatrox. In an in-game lore event, a champion actually died. Players who logged in on July 29, 2015 were greeted with an in-game notification. Gangplank is dead and has been disabled in all queues. This is the story of the only time Riot Games killed off a champion in this way, and why they will never do it again. Back in the day, Riot wasn't really sure how to handle League of Legends lore. In the very early days, we would really only get the occasional Journal of Justice entry and not much else. Some champions, like Evelynn, basically had no lore whatsoever. And for the early days, it's not surprising. For a long period, Riot was dropping a new champion every 2 weeks. If you're new to League, you're probably shocked to hear that, but it's true. In 2010, Riot released 24 new champions. And they did the same thing in 2011. It's no surprise that it was near impossible to have a coherent story in League when they were designing and releasing champions so quickly. Over the years, Riot would try new things to make the lore more consistent and to bring the lore into the game itself. The Bilgewater event and the death of Gangplank is one of the most bold things Riot has ever done. People who have played League a long time might be surprised to hear me talk about something that happened in 2015 as if it's a part of old League lore. Usually when people are talking about old League, they're referring to somewhere between 2009 and 2012 or 13. When I started making this video, I almost scrapped it altogether because I thought the event was too recent. Then reality hit. 2015 was almost 10 years ago. This event happened 6 years after League's launch, and this video is being uploaded 9 years after the event. The gap between now and the event is 50% larger than the gap between League's launch and the event. Life really comes at you fast. So what was this event? The event was the Bilgewater update, which updated the lore and gameplay of Bilgewater champions. There was also a new ARAM map called Butcher's Bridge and many other things that we'll cover. Miss Fortune received a visual update as well as a small gameplay update. The changes to her kit were relatively minor overall. Gangplank's changes were huge, and this would basically be the Gangplank still in the game today. The one that does this.
Let's watch this, okay? Boom.
Before looking more at the event, let's look at old Gangplank first. When people think of the old version, they immediately think of Deny Plank. His original E, Raise Morale, allowed him to kill an allied minion, giving champions an attack speed and movement speed increase. This also denied the enemy the gold and XP from that minion. The ability to deny minion kills was ridiculously strong. Gangplank would wait for minions to spawn in his own base and start killing minions right away. By the time the minion wave even got to lane, Gangplank would already have a lead because there was less gold and experience for the enemy champ to get. Once in lane, he would deny every single cannon minion for the entire laning phase. This meant that right from the start, Gangplank was ahead of you in XP and gold, and as long as he didn't run it down, it would only get worse. On top of that, he commonly built gold-generating items like Philosopher's Stone, creating even more of a gold gap. All Gangplank had to do was deny minions whenever possible, and he would outscale everyone. This ability was eventually changed in April 2011 to no longer have a minion denying component. Later that same year, he also received his first visual update. Oh, and did you know that in the alpha, Gangplank didn't have a beard?
What?
Here's a cursed image for you. You're welcome. So, back to 2015. When the event launched on July 22nd, the Gangplank rework released, including a visual update. This was the splash art, and this was his new in-game model. Note that they aren't the same ones used today. Keep that in mind. This is also when the first act of the Bilgewater story had been released. In this act, Miss Fortune had hired Graves and Twisted Fate to steal from Gangplank. She also hired a Bilgewater local to leak this information to Gangplank so that he would capture them mid-theft. Act 2 of this event, released that same week, included the capture of TF and Graves by Gangplank. He was depicted as a brutal pirate who tortured his own crew. He would practice scrimshaw, the act of carving on ivory, by carving on the bones of the people who he flayed alive. A few days later, Act 3 of the event would be released. In this act, Gangplank staged a public execution of TF and Graves. It's revealed that this is all part of Miss Fortune's plan to get revenge on Gangplank. 15 years earlier, Gangplank stormed her parents' workshop. He killed them both right in front of her and shot her, leaving her for dead. For years, Sarah Fortune waited for the moment she could exact her revenge, and this was it. While Gangplank was intervening on the heist as planned, she had her people plant explosives within Gangplank's ship. When Gangplank returned, he staged a public execution of TF and Graves. He chained them both to a cannon and pushed them overboard with the intent of drowning them. When this happened, the explosives were detonated, destroying Gangplank's ship, killing his crew and the captain himself. The act ends with Misfortune giving the order to kill any of Gangplank's crew who survived and burn down anything owned by or related to him. It's also revealed that Twisted Fate and Graves had managed to survive. On the day that this act was released, Gangplank was also killed in-game. This is where this notification came from. Riot also released a statement that champion death in League was unprecedented and that they would not address any refund requests for him or his skins at this time. They also released the Captain Fortune skin, as Misfortune would be the new captain and queen of Bilgewater. Many players felt this was a very cool lore event, while others felt that it was annoying and frustrating to not be able to play their main champion for lore reasons. This also caused a debate in the competitive community, which we'll cover later. You can find all sorts of posts asking why Gangplank was unavailable. It was commonly believed that he was actually disabled due to a bug, but a Riot employee commented saying that bugs weren't involved and this was solely for lore purposes. A few days later, the final part of the Bilgewater story would be released. This part revealed that Gangplank had survived the explosion. He was seriously injured and his arm had been mangled. He had made his way to a back alley physician who told him that there was no way to save his arm. The story ends with Gangplank throwing a bone saw at the physician's feet, demanding that he cut it off. Gangplank states that he has work to do. Riot revealed that Gangplank would be available again as of August 5th, but with an updated look. The new version of Gangplank would reflect his appearance after surviving the detonation of his ship and crew. This would be his new default splash art, while the previous version was swapped to a skin instead. This commemorative skin would be available for $500. I couldn't resist. This Captain Gangplank skin would be given to all players for free as long as they owned Gangplank and played him in any queue by the end of the event. This meant that for the lore update, Riot went through the effort of making 2 new appearances for him, solely for the sake of this event, and they did it for free. On top of that, Riot released an entirely new game mode. Black Market Brawlers was a Summoner's Rift variant where you earned Krakens throughout the game. You would use these to buy a Brawler minion, which you could only buy one of. Then these Brawlers would accompany each minion wave, and you could upgrade your brawler by spending Krakens. The event included 16 unique items, most notably Dead Man's Plate. Dead Man's Plate was permanently added to the game at the end of the Burning Tides event. It's also featured in Gangplank's new splash art. Riot went above and beyond for this event, and it really shows. Something that has to be discussed is the controversy of disabling Gangplank, and especially how it impacted professional play. Gangplank's rework launched on July 22, 2015. He was disabled due to his death 1 week later. On July 31st, pro player Wicked made a post talking about how this impacted pro play. He had contacted officials of the Challenger series to see if Gangplank would be disabled for competitive play, and he wasn't. In his post, he asked, how can they leave a champion open for competitive play if he's disabled everywhere else? A champion that was reworked and available to play for only 1 week was allowed to be picked in competitive games. This meant that players had basically no time to learn how to play as or against Gangplank. Many people felt that this was a competitive integrity issue and just a bad decision in general. Funny enough, only a few days later, 1 day before Gangplank would be re-enabled, this would happen in the semifinals.
And now we're seeing the Gangplank.
Alright. Pretty different. We did see some Gangplank before. We've actually seen it by Cabashard in the Summer Split, but that was old Gangplank. That was AP Runeglaive Gangplank.
Right.
This is new Gangplank, which we've never seen ever anywhere in the world.
We have not had an opportunity because he wasn't really enabled until this patch.
Correct. And then he was dead.
He's back from the dead. We'll see whether he uses the ghost skin. That is kind of problematic. You know, there was a lot of discussion from specifically Wicked, this is kind of ironic that this is happening in this game, about the fact that teams on live weren't able to play with Gangplank, but clearly WonderWare feels like he put enough games in before Gangplank was disabled to actually play it. So I am looking forward to seeing how new Gangplank with the rework does.
It's usually how they give up those advantages, but this time, again, they get this advantage. In the top lane, Wicked will just pop the ultimate, a response by using the ultimate from WonderWare, but Wicked's just going to walk into the bush, has the overheat damage, has the minion wave!
At the front line for Team Dignitas, he's using the Sivir ultimate to go in. The Alistair, the Rek'Sai.
Wow,
WonderWare is just going to try and trade with people and completely blow them up.
Senkops comes after, lands that orb, obvious as well. Zhao looking for this fight. Wonderware from the back lines assassinates the Victor, looking for carry as well. He has the barrel set up. He gets the double kill.
It's unfortunate that Wicked was the person who flagged this as a potential issue and also ended up being the person on the receiving end of it. After the game, Wonderware also tweeted that it was his first time playing reworked Gangplank.
Clearly, Wonderware feels like he put enough games in before Gangplank was disabled.
Let me know what you think of this down below. Do you think it was a bad decision by Riot to disable Gangplank but leave him available for competitive play? The Bilgewater event in general was a ton of work from Riot, and overall it was an incredible in-game event. The lore was actually very interesting, and Riot was willing to try bold new things, like killing Gangplank off and having it actually affect the game itself. League is, first and foremost, a game, and I think events like this add a lot to it overall. The Bilgewater event in particular had so much in it that it's easily one of the best in-game events of all time. Back in 2016, in an Ask Riot dev post, they answered a question about if they would ever do another event like this again. They said that they would not be doing another event on this scale. It was simply a lot to produce, and because so many teams are involved, it made it very hard to achieve a specific release window. This one event alone had an 11,000 word story, a new ARAM map, the Gangplank rework with an extra skin for free, a gameplay and visual update for Misfortune, a new item, a fully fleshed out 5v5 game mode, a full Bilgewater themed voiceover for the announcer.
That's how you spill blood.
New icons and in-game missions, all completely free content. Along with this was a skin line inspired by the event, but players got the main skin, Captain Gangplank, for free. I really wish Riot would commit to doing more content like this, but it's much easier to simply use the events as a tool for marketing new skins. Maybe even with an outrageous price tag attached. Before finishing up, I wanted to take a moment to thank you all for supporting the channel. The algorithm works in mysterious ways, and every like or comment really helps. Let me know if you played League during the Bilgewater event down below. I'm curious what your thoughts are on Gangplank being disabled for lore purposes. Was it a fun detail for Riot to include, or was it a bad decision overall? Let me know what you think down below, and again, thanks for watching.